Picture this, a dramatic golden sunset washing over the massive stone arches of the Roman Colosseum. Honestly, you can almost hear the roar of the crowds, right? The marching boots of legions that literally shook the earth. It makes you wonder, how do great empires rise to such breathtaking heights? And why, inevitably, do they all seem to fall? Well, to figure that out, we're going to examine two of the most legendary civilizations in human history. One is a historical heavyweight whose ruins we still walk through today. And the other? The ultimate historical mystery that has baffled explorers for millennia.
There's this incredible quote. Imagine an empire so powerful that it ruled millions across 3 continents, an empire that built roads, bridges, and cities that still exist today. Now, this wasn't just some abstract concept. This was the tangible, monumental reality of ancient Rome at its absolute peak. I mean, they were an unstoppable machine of progress and conquest. But this quote is also a gateway to a much bigger truth. Because no matter how indestructible an empire might seem, time always has other plans.
So what actually brings down an empire? Whether we're looking at the verified marble-strewn ruins of Rome or the ultimate mythological ghost story of Atlantis, every great civilization actually shares a profound, almost unavoidable trajectory. It's like a giant life cycle. They start with a tiny spark, they expand into this roaring flame, they hit a golden age of just untouchable wealth, and then the fire goes out.
Fascinatingly enough, both of these epic stories are deeply rooted in myth. Rome was supposedly founded way back more than 2,700 years ago in 753 BC by twin brothers Romulus and Remus. And get this, legend says they were raised by a she-wolf. Atlantis, on the other hand, well, that story kicks off with the ancient Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC. He wrote all about this magnificent island civilization located way out beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, though actually some historians suspect Plato might have just invented Atlantis as a political allegory, a brilliant, if entirely fictional, cautionary tale for the people of his own time. Now, while Rome's founding is completely wrapped in legend, the actual history shows it started off pretty humbly, just a muddy but highly strategic little settlement on the banks of the Tiber River. But honestly, that location was perfect. The daily life of those early Romans was incredibly disciplined, which allowed them to forge this terrifyingly organized military force. We're talking about soldiers famous for their brutal, highly effective battle strategies, who just steadily conquered nearby lands one by one.
Contrast that muddy little start in Italy with Plato's Atlantis. Atlantis definitely did not start small. It was described as an island of just unmatched wealth, blessed with incredibly fertile soil, towering forests, an absolutely unbeatable navy, and literal mountains of precious metals. From day one, Atlantis was painted as a society that already had it all, just looking out over the crashing ocean waves, totally secure in its absolute dominance.
But for Rome, that kind of dominance had to be earned, mostly through blood. After securing Italy, Rome clashed with Carthage in the brutal Punic Wars. And winning those wars, that's what made Rome the undisputed heavyweight of the Mediterranean. Guided by the political maneuvering of the Roman Senate, and propelled by legendary figures like Julius Caesar leading his legions, Rome just relentlessly expanded across Europe, Africa, and Asia. By AD 117 under Emperor Trajan, this empire stretched all the way from the rainy, foggy shores of Britain directly to the blazing deserts of Egypt.
You see, an empire is really cemented by its builders, and both of these civilizations reached a spectacular zenith of engineering. Rome completely mastered nature. They laid thousands of kilometers of paved roads, engineered these massive aqueducts to pump fresh water right into their cities, and they used a recipe for concrete so incredibly advanced, scientists are literally still studying it today. It formed the foundation for monumental structures like the Colosseum. Meanwhile, Plato tells us Atlantis was this mind-blowing marvel of perfect circular rings of land and water. They had intricate networks of canals and massive bridges that allowed huge ships to sail directly into the city center.
This right here is the true definition of a golden age, a period of immense wealth, advanced agriculture, and massive global trade. It was honestly a fascinating ancient precursor to our modern globalized world. In Rome, goods were flowing in from 3 different continents. In Atlantis, advanced irrigation fed a massive population, while their harbors were just brimming with exotic spices and rare metals. Both of these populations lived in a state of total, absolute abundance. They felt completely untouchable. But, as we know, perfection never lasts.
The seeds of ruin are pretty much always sown in times of plenty. As Rome grew impossibly large, it became an absolute nightmare to govern. Political corruption skyrocketed, the economy fractured, and power-hungry emperors were just constantly fighting each other for the throne, which left the empire's borders totally vulnerable. Fascinatingly, this internal decay perfectly mirrors the fictional fall of Atlantis. The Atlanteans stopped using their wealth wisely, they got infected by greed and this blind obsession with power, and they aggressively expanded to try and dominate all their neighbors.
And in the ancient world, arrogance never went unpunished. Plato wrote that the gods were deeply, deeply disappointed by the Atlanteans' arrogance. Their hubris, their absolute blinding pride, is what invited divine judgment down upon what was once the perfect society. According to the story, the skies darkened, and the earth itself began to violently shake.
1. It took just one single day and one single night. According to Plato's dramatic account, powerful earthquakes literally ripped the island apart and massive, catastrophic floods swept across the land. In the span of just 24 hours, the glorious, golden city of Atlantis vanished entirely beneath the crushing waves of the sea. Its people were gone, and only the legend remained. Rome's end, however, was nothing like a sudden, mythical cataclysm. It was a grueling, agonizingly slow collapse. Weakened from within for centuries, the empire became a sitting duck for relentless attacks from invading barbarian tribes. The once feared Roman legions were just completely overwhelmed. By AD 476, the last emperor was deposed and the Western Roman Empire officially fell. So Rome didn't sink beneath the waves in a single night. It bled out over centuries. But hold on, what if the sudden destruction of Atlantis wasn't entirely a fantasy? Historians have actually debated for a long time whether Plato was inspired by true events. Back in 1600 BC, the nearby volcanic island of Thera, which we know today as Santorini, experienced one of the most violent eruptions in human history. I mean, it triggered massive tsunamis that completely devastated the highly advanced Minoan civilization on the coast. A lot of researchers believe this very real-world trauma is exactly what inspired the legend of a drowned empire in the first place. And because of that tantalizing possibility, the mystery just refuses to die. The search for Atlantis continues to this very day. Explorers are hunting deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, across the Mediterranean, and get this, even under the thick ice of Antarctica. Every now and then they'll find some strange, geometric underwater rock formations, and it totally reignites the hope of finding lost palaces. But to date, absolutely no conclusive evidence has ever been found. Now, contrast that ghostly legacy with the enduring, concrete reality of Rome. While no one can find a single brick of Atlantis, Rome is literally everywhere. The empire fell in 476 AD, but its influence? It never actually disappeared. Roman law forms the absolute backbone of countless modern legal systems today. Their architectural foundations are still being replicated, and Latin simply evolved into the Romance languages, like Spanish, French, and Italian, spoken by hundreds of millions of people globally right now. Rome fell, but it never really left us. So what's the grand takeaway from these two extraordinary narratives? Honestly, it all comes down to one single word: hubris. Power without wisdom, inevitably leading to destruction. Whether you're looking through the thoroughly documented collapse of Rome or the philosophical warnings of Atlantis, history proves time and again that even the most technologically advanced, incredibly wealthy civilizations are not eternal. When a society succumbs to its own arrogance, it plants the very seeds of its own ruin. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question. Is our modern world destined for the exact same fate? Think about it. We have our own massive global trade networks, our own absolutely incredible feats of engineering, and arguably our own immense hubris. Will we eventually fade into the history books just like Rome, or become a cautionary tale like Atlantis? I'd love to hear what you think, so let us know in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this explainer, please make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss our next journey into history. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and as always, stay curious.